Welcome to the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast, where we hope to inspire you to embrace your God-given gifts, skills, and passions in order to lead with confidence. I'm your host, Esther Littlefield, a pastor's wife, business owner, mom, and writer. My co-host is Holly Kane, and together we chat about important issues that Christian women leaders face. In addition, we interview other women just like you who lead in various roles, from church to community to business. Through this podcast, we offer you encouragement, tools, and resources to help you on your leadership journey. We're so glad you're here with us. Welcome to the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Esther Littlefield, and I am here with my co-host, Holly Kane. Hey, Holly.
Hey, Esther. I'm happy to be here with you today chatting about this.
Yes. And if you are listening to this around the time that it releases, we are in December of 2018. And this is the time of year that a lot of us start to think about goals and planning for the new year and all the big things that we want to accomplish in the next year. So are you starting to think about that, Holly?
I am, and I'm actually thinking about the totally different person that I'm going to be next year.
Yes.
Because, I have an entire year to completely change everything about myself. So, yeah.
Awesome.
And it's totally possible to do that.
So over the next several weeks, we are going to be talking about the theme of goal setting. So we'll be doing some episodes, Holly and I, along this theme, and in between we'll have some guest interviews. And those won't necessarily all be about goal setting, but we are going to, on the episodes that Holly and I are together, we're going to really dive into this and hopefully help you as a leader get your 2019 off to a really good start. Yeah. And even if you're listening to this at a different time of the year, I think that a lot of what we talk about will still be beneficial. Mm-hmm. So, but before we get started, I want to share about today's sponsor. So today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. So to get access to this, you can go to estherlittlefield.com/audible and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. You can download a free trial and start listening. It's super easy. And I will tell you that I have been using Audible really for the past year. I think I signed up last December, and I've been using it for the full year, and I absolutely love it because as a busy person, I find that it's really hard for me to sit down and read sometimes and, make that time, but I can listen to audiobooks just like podcasts anytime, anywhere, when I'm driving, when I'm cleaning. So I absolutely love it. What about you, Holly? Do you use Audible yourself?
Oh, yes. I love Audible actually. And one of my favorite things to do with Audible actually is when we're on a long car ride, I download books that my son and I can listen to together. And in fact, when we drove from Maine to Florida, when we were moving down here, I think knocked out four books. And
Wow.
So it was a lot of fun. We got to talk about the books together. He's a bookaholic, so he really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you want to check this out, again, you can get a free audiobook and a 30-day trial membership to test it out for yourself. So even if you're not sure if you want to stick with it, you can go over to estherlittlefield.com/audible and take advantage of that free trial. So as we mentioned, we are going to be getting started on this theme of goal setting. And Holly and I were really thinking through how we can help you with your goal setting and how we work through this process ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to talk about this in at least 4 different episodes. There might end up being more than that, but right now we're planning on 4. And the first step of the process is really reflecting on the past. So we're going to start with reflecting on the previous year before we get into actually setting goals. And then after that we're going to talk about vision and dreaming. So kind of creating a vision for what you want your year to look like or what you want your life to look like. That'll be the next episode. And then we will get into actually goal setting. And then finally talking about implementation and how do we put these things into action in our lives. And a lot of this will apply for our personal lives, but also I think we'll touch on how it could impact your team or your business or your workplace, and being aware of how we all work differently. Because one of the things that we talked about in discussing this is that our personality and the way that we're wired really affects how we approach this whole process.
Oh,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we will definitely be getting into some of that. So, today our episode will be all about reflecting on the past. And so we're going to really kind of, Holly and I are going to have a discussion about how we have looked at 2018 and reflect
Mhm.
on that. But we also want to give you a chance to answer some of the questions for yourself. But first, we should probably talk about why reflecting is even important. Like, why should we reflect on the year or on the past before we dive into planning for the future? So what do you think, Holly? What are some of the reasons why?
So I think it's important to kind of know where you've been before you can know where you're going. It sounds so simple and kind of stupid maybe, but it's really important to see how you've goal set in the past and how that's worked before, things that didn't work for you, maybe how life circumstances kind of took over your goal setting and how you kind of handled that.
Yeah.
It's really important to be looking back at those things so that you can make really smart goals going forward, and you can actually plan for things that you can attain, and something that you'll feel really confident about actually getting done. And something I think getting through those things actually gives you a confidence boost. So
Yeah.
I think it's just as important to reflect on where you've been so that you can be really smart about moving forward. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And I would say I think that we are forgetful a lot of times.
Mm,
And
that's a,
so for me in the
yeah.
current moment, I just am focused on like something that I didn't accomplish yesterday, or something that a
Yes.
goal that I was working on this week or this month that I didn't accomplish. And I forget to look back sometimes and look at
Mhm.
all the things that I did accomplish or that did work out. So I
Yeah.
think taking that time to reflect is really beneficial, because it's easy for us to forget
Yeah.
what we've done or what God has done in our life, or those type of things.
Yeah. So I think that that actually makes me kind of think of, um, as you said, you think about the things you didn't accomplish yesterday. I kind of get in the mindset that I'm not really winning in life. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but as I look back over the year, I can see, maybe I might not have gotten the dishes done every day, but I can see the big things that got accomplished and how God worked throughout the year. So I love
Yeah.
that you said that, because I think it puts you in the right mindset to be
Yeah.
looking towards the future.
Right. Yeah. So there's a couple different ways you can go about this. And everybody, like we said, personality is going to affect how you approach the reflection process. For me, I really have to force myself to do the reflection, because I am
Mm,
very much oriented towards the future and what's going to come.
mm,
But for me, I use the tool Power Sheets, which we've talked about before on previous episodes and in our Facebook group. But the Power Sheets are a tool from Cultivate What Matters, and we'll put the link in the show notes for you if you want to check them out. But that tool last year really helped me when I was doing the reflection, because there were a lot of prompts and a lot of questions that it gave me
mm,
to answer, which helped me just to slow down and think through the questions. Other people might just want to set aside a time to go for a walk or sit quietly somewhere and just think about it. Maybe you don't want to actually write things down, but you want to think through those questions, think through just processing the past year.
mm.
Um, any other ways that people might go about it that you can think of, Holly?
I think for me, I mean, I'm not a super journaler, but I think just like making a quick list,
Yep.
sort of in the same way that you kind of make like a thankfulness or gratefulness list,
Mhm.
something, even if it's just like quick bullet points, I think that would be an easy way to at least get started on that reflection. And then, like you said, take that extra time to really think about each one slowly.
Yeah.
Um, but I think making a quick list would be really helpful. And then the other thing I think of is you could talk to someone who's super close to you. So a spouse would have a really good reflection on the prior year and would maybe bring up some things that you didn't even think of and that
Yeah.
you could process a little bit more in depth.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Processing with another person is another great option if you're not
Yeah.
a writer or
Yeah.
if you're more of an extrovert and you love just talking through things, that might be a
Yeah.
good option. So,
So I think like a mentor or a spouse would be a great
Mhm.
person to do that with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay,
So,
great.
as we reflect on the year, a lot of people pick a word for the year. So, Esther and I both did that for 2018, and we're going to chat about that first before we get into some other reflection questions. So, the one word for the year, Esther, did you have a word? And what was it?
I did. My word for 2018 was refine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And before you talk to me about how that kind of shaped your year, I would love to know just a quick little snippet of how you picked that word.
Okay. So I'll go back to the power sheets again because that's part of the process in the power sheets is choosing your word for the year. But really I went through a lot of different words.
Mhm.
It started with some reflection and then it started with like thinking about the coming year and um just brain dumping a bunch of different words on the page and things that
Yeah.
were just standing out to me. And I just started to really think about what was really feeling most important to me about the coming year.
Hmm.
And that's how I ended up landing on refine. And I kind of looked at, I even like, because I'm such a nerd, I searched like the dictionary definitions of several of the words that I was looking at. And
Hmm.
that helped me decide which word I wanted to choose as my word for the year.
So, how did that word shape your year as you look back over the things that you've accomplished or the things that you didn't accomplish? Did that
Right.
word have any sort of meaning to you?
Yeah, I think the word for the year just helped me kind of have an anchor point to come
Yeah,
back to
that
when
makes
I
sense.
was making decisions
Hmm.
about things because for me, refine meant cutting out anything that wasn't necessary, cutting
Hmm.
out anything that was taking away from what was most important. And I was thinking about it in terms of like being refined by fire.
Yeah.
Talks about, if you think about the biblical verses that talk about that idea, just really getting rid of anything that was non-essential. And so when I would think about doing things or trying things or events or signing up for stuff, like a lot of that helped me, going back to that word, helped me to figure out, is this really something that needs to be
Mhm.
part of my life? Is it something that God wants to be part of my life? Or can I just refine and get rid of stuff?
Yeah.
So that helped me a lot with throughout the whole year, kind of making decisions. Yep.
So it definitely sounds like your one word or your um, maybe your process of picking your one word really got helped guide you through the year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yep. So what about you, Holly? What was your word and how did you choose it?
So my word was brave. And it's so funny when I hear you talk about how you picked your word and how I picked my word.
Come back to the personality thing, right?
Yeah. So every year for the past like 2 or 3 years, when this sort of became a bigger thing that people were doing, I would sit and reflect and just like pour over all these words and I would kind of see what other people were picking. And I could just never pick a word that felt like it was worthy of an entire year. Uh, and so, because if you know me, I use lots of words. And so I probably speak millions and billions of words in one year. So picking one was just too difficult. I couldn't narrow it down. But this past year, when I picked my word, I got to tell you, I knew it almost immediately. I knew exactly what it was, and I didn't really have to reflect on it too much. And I really honestly think that God gave me that word um, because I've never had that experience before, and
Mm,
I felt really settled about it, and I knew that it was right. And so I really felt confident going into the year with that being my word.
okay. So your
So,
word was brave. So
yes.
how did your word affect your year?
So, I think that brave for me was just a reminder to follow God. Um, I don't want to use the word fearlessly, but kind of with a reckless abandon almost,
Mhm.
because I've learned a lot in the past few years that a lot of the things that God has required of me initially are pretty scary. And so I have learned to sort of jump into those things that feel super risky, super uncomfortable, super scary, and just, I don't want to say let go of my fear, maybe embrace my fear and just keep moving through it.
Mm.
And so the word brave was a reminder to me to do that. And I kind of knew certain things were probably going to be coming up for the year. Um, I knew I was going to be starting a business. I knew that I kind of wanted to work in a way that I would be hopefully being able to get done my job. Um, a lot of things were moving parts in my life. And so I
Mhm.
knew that I needed to be brave, and I knew that there were going to be a lot of really scary things. And so as I look back over what actually happened in the year, it was the perfect word, because we ended up making a huge move in our life.
Yeah.
I was able to start a business. I am now working for myself. And I was able to quit a job that I adored. And even that process, um, God was so kind to me in the fact that at the end of 2017, would have never thought that I would have left that job. I mean, literally, I never would have left that job. I loved it so much. And so being brave was allowing him to release me from that and
Yeah.
to allow that separation of what I really enjoyed, what I really loved, and trust him that there would be something good on the other side of that risk. So
Yeah.
it was definitely an interesting situation compared to other years when I did not have a word. And
Yeah.
I'm really glad that God gave it to me, because it was really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the first step in reflecting on your year is to think about if you had a word for the year, just to sit back and reflect on that word. And like we just talked
Mhm.
about, how did that word impact you? Did you come back to it? Did you forget about it?
Yeah.
Just kind of take some time to think about that. So we have a few other questions we're going to work through and chat about.
Yeah.
And again, you can just, even if you're listening to this episode, you can jot down these questions and just at your leisure think about them, answer them for yourself. And there's lots of other questions you could ask. So these are just a couple that we liked and we've heard in other scenarios used. So let's start with what worked in the past year. So Holly, do you
Mhm.
want to share what worked for you in the past year, and whether
Yeah.
that's reaching a goal or just
Mhm.
anything that was working well?
So I think I think I'm going to go back to my business. I think that m- me actually being able to start a business and have something that actually brought in money. I mean, a year ago, I would have never dreamed that I could have done that.
Mm.
Um, I'm so thankful for Esther's mentorship in that, but um, but honestly, the fact that I even had the confidence to do it, the fact that I um, kind of have been able to work through some of that imposter syndrome where I felt like I wasn't actually good enough, or I didn't have enough skill to actually help people. That right there is sort of a huge thing that worked for me, because I am really good at being down on myself. I'm really good at dreaming about really fantastic things I could do, but never actually getting there.
Mm.
And so it was a huge thing for me to see that that actually worked. And I may not have a huge business, and I may not have some crazy revenue each month, but I have something that I'm contributing to my family, and I feel really good about it, and I feel really good about the clients that I'm helping. So that's one of the things that really worked well for me in the past year. So
Awesome.
what
Yeah.
about you? What worked for you in the past year?
So I have a couple that I'll share. So I went back to my goals from my power sheets and looked at what I actually set for goals at the beginning of 2018. I'll pick two that I had selected. So one was for my business. I set some goals for my business and I set a revenue goal. And I did a good, better, best, which is 3 different numbers that would be, it'd be good if I hit this, it'd be better if I hit this, it would be the best if I hit this. So I think I'm on track for the better. I don't know if I'm going to hit the best, but that just felt good to look back and see, okay, I did set that goal and put in a lot of work and I'm seeing the results of that. The second thing that I had on my goals was to transition my website from what it had been previously to estherlittlefield.com, which I did. And then part of that also was starting the podcast.
Yeah.
So that's a huge, huge thing that did work this year, is actually taking action on that, because I like to be someone who has things really figured out before I start something. And I definitely feel like we started the podcast a little bit before I was totally ready. And, there's been a lot of learning, but I'm really grateful that we did it and that we've been able to connect with the women who are listening in our Facebook group and through lots of other ways. So that has been really something that worked, that I'm thankful for.
I love that you mentioned the podcast, because as you thought about it, I was like, I never thought that I would be doing a podcast at the beginning of the year. So
Right.
The podcast for me was a really great, happy surprise for 2018 when I think about it. And it kind of shows me that my word brave was definitely something that I needed, because
Yes.
that was totally out of the realm of what I even thought I was doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to mention that. So
yeah, I think that it's fun to look at when you're reflecting, to look at what you had for goals, but also to look, were there any surprises? Were there anything that came up that you weren't expecting? So for you, it was a podcast. For me, I actually had a surprise in that I ended up having 3 speaking engagements for the year that I didn't anticipate either. 2 of them were related to my business, and one was actually related to speaking to Christian women, which was locally here, and that just happened this week. And that was totally a surprise. As well as the other 2 speaking engagements were both things that I wasn't necessarily looking for, but when they came up and the opportunity was there, I said yes, and I was really excited to be able to do that. So
I
it's
love
fun
that
to look at.
that's sort of part of this, because as we're talking about this, you're a really big planner and I'm more of a feeler and off the cuff. And so it's really nice to look back and go, okay, we both planned for things and they were successful, and we both didn't plan for things and those were also successful. So I don't know what you can glean from that, but
yeah. Well, I think it's important to be aware of the fact that regardless of your personality, regardless of how you set goals, like, God has bigger plans. And sometimes God throws something in there that you never expected or anticipated. And it can be really amazing when that happens. So
yeah.
awesome.
Okay. So let's move on to our next question. What didn't work for the year?
All right. So I had 2 goals on my goal list and they did not work out so good. So one of them was that I really want to declutter my house. And I really have wanted to do that for a while. And we moved 4 years ago. And my dream was that when we moved into our new house, that I would be completely organized and so clean and get rid of all the junk, which we did get rid of a lot when we moved, but we moved into a bigger house. So that almost made it worse because we just had more space to put stuff that we didn't need. So decluttering was on my goal list for 2018. And unless I do a lot in December, we will not quite hit that goal. So that was one. The other one that is more important to me, actually, and we made some progress, but it's not where I want it to be, is actually having some more consistent family routines. So one of my goals was kind of to have this, and it might be part of my personality in that I want things to be really ideal and kind of picture perfect, which is not how life works. But I do have some goals on how I want to raise my daughter and to have her have some routines and like just learn some basic household, taking care of the household and, every day we do X, Y, and Z consistently. And we have not really stuck with any particular routine. We are doing a little bit more consistently on things, but there's definitely a long way to go on
Yeah.
that one. So
Yeah.
that didn't work so well. So I'm trying not to beat myself up on it, but just to
Mm,
realize, okay, maybe I needed to be more specific about what those two goals need to look like on a smaller scale instead of just
yeah.
that big overarching idea. So what about you, Holly? What didn't work for you?
So I think my first one is more of a timing thing rather than what the actual goal was. I wanted to be done, excuse me, I wanted to be done work by April, and I was not done until the end of June. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, but I was really working for it, and I thought that it could happen, but it wasn't realistic for our family. And um, frankly, after I look at it and the timing of how our move all happened, I'm really glad that it ended up working out that way. But I really wanted to be, up and running in 4 months and be able to replace some of my income in that short amount of time, and it just didn't happen. So, um, although it did end up happening, of course, eventually, I was really bummed about the timing of it, which, you know, I
Yeah.
should just trust that someone
God knew.
else's timing is a little bit better than mine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the second thing, I'm actually going to be like super vulnerable and talk about something I never thought I was going to talk about, but I'm going to do it because I trust you guys. Um, in 2017, my husband and I did a really great job at losing weight, and we were really doing great. He actually lost 100 pounds. I lost 50 because I'm a woman and I'm not a man, and I can't look at a glass of water and just shed 10 pounds. But we were feeling really great and doing really great, and I was really proud of ourselves. And so I was really hoping that I could really consistently keep up. It was slow progress, but it was progress. And then 2018 hit, and the stress of trying to start a business and the stress of moving and, familial things, all that stuff really hit. And we just totally lost our focus.
Yeah.
And so I am really frustrated that that didn't work because I was doing so well. It wasn't just
Mm.
a pie in the sky thing that wasn't happening, because I've had that goal every year for my life.
Mhm.
But it was working, and I was so ready to just like stay the course. But it, all those extraneous things really took a toll on us, and it wasn't terrible, but we were trying to survive, and we were trying to process everything and figure out how it was all going to work, how this huge change was going to affect our immediate tight knit family, but as well, like, further out in the family
Yeah.
circle, our parents and siblings and that sort of thing. And so we totally just lost sight of it. And
Mm.
I'm frustrated, but I also feel somewhat okay about it because I know that I did it once and I can do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of bummed
Yeah.
about that one.
Yeah.
So
So I think that one of the things that we can do when we're reflecting on our past year is asking ourselves why something didn't work.
yeah.
And, it's hard to do that though, because then you have to
Mm,
kind of dig a little deeper than just, oh, I
yeah.
didn't do that thing.
Hmm.
Like for me, why didn't I declutter? If I think about that a lot, I mean, really it comes down to the fact that I just didn't put in any effort and I
Yeah.
didn't set aside any time. Like it's not magically going to happen if I don't schedule some time on my calendar to go in and clean out my closet, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if I just don't. So I think it's important to reflect on why you didn't accomplish your goals or reach certain things or what didn't work,
Hmm.
but also not to dwell on those failures. Like for
Yeah.
you, if you decided, okay, we didn't reach our goals in terms of our health and our weight loss in the past year, if you just choose to hold on to that and dwell on that, it's going to make it really hard to do anything differently in the next
Mhm.
year, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think for me, when I think about why, I didn't have the emotional stamina to be able to handle all of that at one time.
Yeah.
And I know that that's okay. It sucks, and I'm sad because I kind of went backwards on where I was, but I also understand that for me, mental health wise, I could not have handled all of that at the same time.
Yep.
So for me to look back and realize that although it is frustrating, it was a coping mechanism, I can kind of give myself a little bit of grace because it was a huge life change for me. So as I dwell on that, or as I try not to dwell on the failure side of it, um, it helps me look forward and realize I need to be realistic about the, emotional gravity of the goals I'm picking.
Right.
Because if they're too difficult and I have a lot of things happening, I will shut down and just stop
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's me.
And I think that's why asking yourself why didn't you hit those goals, or why didn't something work for you in the past
Mhm.
year, is really helpful, because like you said, it could be that the 5 goals that you picked are all incredibly intense
Mhm.
emotionally. And
Yeah.
it's just not, each of us has a different capacity
Mhm.
in life, I believe. And so you have to know yourself and understand, it goes back to that self-awareness of understanding what
Yeah.
you are physically and mentally and emotionally capable of doing, and
Mhm.
spiritually, and just recognizing. And so, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's really helpful. So,
So,
okay.
yeah.
The last question we're going to talk about is looking forward. So,
Yeah.
what's next? What are a couple things that you're excited about for in the coming year? So, Holly, how about you?
So, I am very excited to see what happens with the podcast in the next year. I'm overwhelmed and shocked and like, I don't even know what the word is, but I'm so happy with where we've come in the short amount of time that we've been doing this. And I'm so happy with all of the people that we've been able to personally connect with and how they've told us how it's made an impact in their lives. And, you know, if we were to shut this down December 31st and never do it again, it would be all worth it because of those people.
Mm,
But I'm really excited to see what happens in 2019 because it's as I kind of, do it, it's like addicting to kind of be like, okay, well, who else can we, impact and who else
yeah.
can um, hear what God has to say through our, little measly podcast. So
Yes.
that's definitely one of the things I'm excited for. The other thing I'm excited for is growing my business in 2019.
Mm.
I want to grow in confidence. I want to grow in, offerings from clients. I want to grow in my skill level, and I just want to, be really good at this. So what about you? What are a couple of things you're excited about for next year?
Okay. So, I would say I'm excited to have more focus.
Mm,
And that's kind of a very ambiguous term, but basically, I've just been learning more and more the importance for me to doing less, but doing less more effectively.
mm,
And so, I'm narrowing down the focus of my business. I have cut out throughout the year. I did the refine thing, and I did cut out some things that were not the most important in my life.
mm.
And so I'm excited to have more focus. And then the other thing I'm excited about is making more time for fun. So I'm
I like
really hoping that, because I'm bad at just having fun, I'm bad at kicking back and relaxing. And so I really actually have to plan my fun. But I'm going to be intentional about it. And I have that is one of the things that I did some in 2018, but I want to do more of that in 2019, and like already have a couple trips planned, like little weekend things that I know we're going to do that involve going to concerts, which I love. So those will be things that I'm going to incorporate the fun into my life, but I need to incorporate it in like a weekly basis too, like
Yeah.
making things fun. So I don't know, that those are kind of two things, focus and fun.
Okay, well, you did not clear this answer with me before you said it. So now
Oh,
we need to have a little off podcast session where we talk about what concerts you're going to
oh,
and
yeah,
whether or
yeah.
not I need to tag along with you.
Okay.
So before we kind of conclude this and summarize what we've talked about, Esther, I'm curious, do you have your word for next year?
So I actually do, which is weird because I
Oh,
feel like it's early. I feel like I
yeah.
usually wait, but I went to a business conference
Mm-hmm.
a couple weeks ago, and I was out in California, and part of the event was choosing your word for the year.
Oh,
And I didn't have a ton of time to think about it, so I did something unusual, which was sort of
oh,
choose a word quickly.
wow.
But yeah, I chose the word move,
Oh, I
which
like that.
sounds, again, I keep choosing these terms that are very, I don't know what the word is, but anyway, the reason I chose it is because part of what I want to do is be more action oriented,
Mm-hmm.
because I can spend a lot of time thinking and planning and processing and all of that and not taking action on things. And so I
Mm.
want to move more quickly into things that I feel like are the right things to do. But I also want to move my body more. So physical movement, like I want to just keep myself moving, because working at home, being at
Mm.
my desk a lot, I'm not
Yeah.
moving around as much as I used to. So again, part of that might be related to the fun thing and finding fun ways to incorporate moving into my
Mm.
weekly routine better than I have in the past year.
That's a really
So
good word. I like that.
thanks.
Yeah.
Do you have your word for next year?
Oh, heck no.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do it. Maybe you will this year kind of just be given your word, and maybe this year I will have to really dig for my
You
word.
might have to.
We'll
Okay.
see. I'll keep you updated on whether or not I get my word.
Yeah. All right. So we hope that this episode has been helpful. We know it's a little bit different than some of our other episodes where we were more sharing some of our own answers to these things, but we want you to take some time and really start reflecting on the past year. If you haven't done that, maybe in the next couple weeks during the holiday season, you can sit down and take some time to reflect. And again, there's a couple things that you can do. One, you can just grab a journal, grab a pen and paper, grab a friend or a mentor or a spouse and talk through some of these questions. And again, the questions that we would encourage you to go through are, if you had a word for the year, reflect on how that worked for you this past year. Did the word help you? Did it help you stay on track?
Mm-hmm.
Then ask what worked in the past year, what didn't work, and you could answer why to both of those questions if you want. And then also asking what's next. What are you excited for in the coming year? Okay, so if you want to share your answers to these questions, when this episode airs, we will post these questions in our Facebook group,
Yeah.
and we would love to hear your answers. So come on over to our Facebook group. Again, you can go to estherlittlefield.com/group to join the group. When you request to join, make sure you answer the questions. I know that can be a little bit annoying, but it helps us keep out spammers
Yes.
because a lot of people will try to request groups that are not even interested in the topic, and they're coming in to spam people. So we do ask that you answer the questions so we know you're a real person, and and that will help us to make sure that our group stays, really full of amazing Christian women leaders. So anyway, come over to the group and answer your questions. And again, if you want to have a little bit more of a methodical, thoughtful approach to some of your reflection, then I do recommend the power sheets. And you can get those at estherlittlefield.com/power sheets. They do sell out. So I'm hoping they won't sell out by the time this episode airs, but they usually do sell out every year. So if you want to get that, it will help you plan out your year and really reflect and then set goals. And there's tabs for each month of the year as well, so you can check in with your goals each month. So Before we wrap up with some fun questions, I'm just going to mention one more time that our sponsor for this episode was Audible, and we would love for you to be able to get a free membership to Audible and try it out for 30 days. And again, you can do that at estherlittlefield.com/audible, and the link will be in the show notes for that as well.
So let us know what book you got. We want to hear how you're liking Audible because we love it.
Exactly. Yes, we do. And sometimes in the group, we do discuss our book recommendations. So you can check out in the group too and look for book recommendations.
So we're getting nearer to Christmas, and we're going to do our ending questions like we do every episode that Esther and I are on. We're going to ask some questions about Christmas, and we're going to do a little bit different this time. We're going to do some rapid fire questions. So I'm going to ask you these 5 or 6 questions, and then you lay it on me.
All right. Okay. Sounds good.
Are you ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
Christmas music before Thanksgiving, yes or no?
No.
Okay. Do you snoop around for gifts and open them ahead of time, or do you not look?
No looking.
Real or fake tree?
Real all the way.
Okay. Were you the kind of family where everyone opens their gifts at the same time or one by one?
One by one.
And what's one food you have to have on Christmas?
I love making molasses cookies at Christmas. Ooh. So yeah, it's a fun little fact. Not necessarily like on Christmas, but around the Christmas season, I have to make molasses cookies. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to ask you the same questions.
Okay.
All right. So Christmas music before Thanksgiving, yes or no?
No.
Snoop around for gifts and open them or not look?
I did not look.
Real or fake tree?
Oh, definitely real.
Okay. Were you the kind of family who opens one at a time or all at the same time?
One at a time.
And one food you have to have on Christmas?
Cinnamon rolls.
Oh, yeah. I'll take those too.
We have those every Christmas morning with orange juice.
Oh, yes.
Since I was a little kid.
Awesome. I love it. I love making cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning too. So, okay. All right. So we are so glad you joined us for this episode. We hope that this helps you end your year with some time to reflect and before you get into the goal setting. So again, the next few episodes that Holly and I do in December and January are going to be along this theme. So you're going to get some more insight into this process and how you can continue getting ready for the coming year. And even if you're listening to this in the middle of the year, you can do this any time of year, really. Yeah. I don't think you should only reflect once a year.
Yeah.
So we hope to have more of a conversation about these questions in our Facebook group. So come join us over there, and thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us on the Christian Women Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, come and join us in our private Facebook community. We would love to get to know you better so that we can make sure the podcast is providing what you need. Plus, you can share your questions and ideas, and you'll be surrounded by incredible Christian women leaders. To join the group, visit estherlittlefield.com/group. Now, don't forget, your leadership matters, and it's time for you to embrace your gifts and lead with confidence.